it going?
Hey, so I'm Aaron, and this is Sarah, and we're going to have probably an unedited video for you this week, because as you may have guessed, we are not in our Brooklyn apartment. No, indeed. We are where we've been for the past 2 weeks, in Dancing Rabbit Eco Village in Rutledge, Missouri. Our previous couple of videos were taped in advance and queued up, like the pros that we are. But like the pros that we are, we didn't get to the last one we needed to queue up, and so we're doing it here from memory. So Dancing Rabbit Eco Village, you can Google it, is a place where people live in such a way that their ecological footprint is like about 10% of what a normal American's would be, but part of the mission statement is that it doesn't suck, and we had solar-powered electricity to charge the iPad that we're filming this with, and could in fact have, with some difficulty, streamed and rewatched the episode. But this is a favorite of mine, The City on the Edge of Forever, which is one of two that was written by Harlan Ellison. Harlan Ellison is a famously abrasive sci-fi writer. He's more radical than the typical sci-fi writer was in the 20th century, and also just angry, which is very clear in everything that he writes. One of his short story anthologies is called Angry Candy, which kind of sums up what he does. And he has a history of being rather abruptly fired from corporations that he tried to work for. I think he lasted less than a day at Disney. He did an impression of Minnie Mouse having sex or something like that, and they were like, nope. The stuff he wrote for the Twilight Zone was too radical. Like, he wrote about race, but not in code the way the Twilight Zone did it. And the romantic in me likes to think that this episode, and maybe also the other one he wrote, which I haven't seen yet, is why he was fired from Star Trek, because I see it as kind of an intense interrogation of the basic problems with Star Trek as a show. The official line is that he was fired basically because he kept writing crowd scenes and they didn't have the budget for crowd scenes, and then he refused to write fixes. Gene Roddenberry, who was running the show, was kind of a big personality, and you could see why. And even a little bit of rebellion would have been too much. But I think it's more than that. I want it to be more than that. So, City on the Edge of Forever has the Enterprise traveling towards a strange planet that is sending out ripples of time and disruptions. And this causes somebody to be injured, and McCoy gets called up the bridge to treat him, and he tries to he restarts his heart or something with a stimulant that he has, cordrazine or tricordrazine. Shatner says, tricordrazine, that's tricky stuff, and which is a warning that something is going to go wrong with it. And then another disruption hits and causes McCoy to stumble and inject the whole hypospray into himself. Oh no! So he gets wide-eyed and pale and sweaty and paranoid, and starts screaming about how everybody on the ship are murderers and assassins, and runs away. So they're chasing after him, and then they get to the and then they also get to the planet, which is the source of these disruptions and is the eye of the storm, so they stop happening. McCoy decides he's going to be safe from these murderers and assassins, so he beams down to the planet. They beam down to chase him and catch him. And they find this great big talking stone circle, the guardian of forever. They don't?
They do, but it's silly.
Like, I exist outside of time. Look, I can show you your own history. And then it starts showing fast motion history of Earth. fascinated by, and they get out their tricorders and start recording it, which I approve. It's exactly that sort of scientific curiosity that you want to see more of in Star Trek, and like actually gathering the data. But then McCoy turns out to be not quite as subdued as they thought, and jumps into the circle to escape, thereby vanishing into the scene that it was currently depicting. So they're like, oh no, and they try to contact the Enterprise, and the Enterprise is not there. And they realize that the Enterprise has now never existed. They don't question why they are still there. Kind of has to be because they're at the eye of the storm of the temporal disturbances or something. But we've got people behind us. We may get some surprise guests if they make their way around to the other side of the body of water that we are up against. They watch history, and now the Nazis won World War II, so whoops. Which explains why they're not in space, why humanity is not a spacefaring civilization. So they talk to the Guardian of Forever and says, oh yeah, I am also a time machine, and your friend has altered the past, so you need to go through me too, and change the past again back to the way it was, and once it's back the way it was, I'll get you back. They again do something that's slightly more sensible than is normally done in Star Trek, which is they decide to go through two at a time, so that if the first team to go through fails, then the others will have a chance to go back in time and prevent them from failing and rescue the mission. Of course, they still send Kirk and Spock through first instead of people lower down the command chain, but slim pickings. So Kirk and Spock head back to late 30s, maybe I think it's 30s in New York, and it's not an exact science, so they're just looking for a place to stay, and they end up in this shelter and soup kitchen. Well, not really a shelter, but a soup kitchen, run by a social worker named Edith Keeler. She takes in these people who, of course, have no money and don't really know the lay of the land. They did steal some clothes, and had a little comical interlude with the police officer where they try to explain that Spock is Chinese, but he had an unfortunate accident as a child, and that's why his ears are pointy. They don't really do a great job of it. So Edith Keeler takes them in. Spock decides he needs to figure out exactly where the point of differentiation was, so he needs to compare the before and afters. So he needs to construct a device to do that out of stone knives and bear skins, as he puts it, 1930s human technology. So that's taken him forever. And Kirk does some work in order to earn enough money to get him some more tools. So then McCoy comes through. It turns out they actually came through before him, and is also coincidentally taken in by Edith Keeler, but always keeps avoiding meeting Kirk and Spock. Kirk decides he's fallen in love with Edith Keeler, and Edith Keeler demonstrates that she is the most advanced person of the 1930s by giving these little sermons to people while they're eating their soup, about how in the future we will have moved beyond war and poverty and we'll all be flying around in spaceships. She has this utopian vision. So really no wonder that Kirk falls in love with her, although he always falls in love with the lady, so he's probably not that discriminating. Spock determines that Edith Keeler must die because in the way that McCoy altered the future was by causing her to survive an auto accident that and then go on to start a pacifist movement that would delay the U.S.'s involvement in World War II, leading to Hitler winning. Like most of the time when you travel back in time, you cause Hitler to win. So Kirk is very sad. Then they show up just in time to see McCoy about to save Edith Keeler, and Kirk is the one to hold McCoy back, and then he's very sad, and Spock is and McCoy is upset. He's mostly back to himself, but he's still, wanted to save the lady. And he says, "Do you know what you've done, Jim?" And Spock says, "He knows. He knows." And then, woo, they're back. And the Guardian of Forever is like, "Hey, I'm a freaking time machine. You can do lots of stuff with me." And Kirk says, "No, I'm sad. Let's get the hell out of here." And then they beam up, and the magical fix-everything machine is, as usual, never referred to again. So, what do you think of this episode? I have a lot to say.
I've noticed you have a lot to say. We're already at 11 minutes and 37 seconds, so I think we have to be very quick. But I think that it makes sense to me, or rather it makes no sense to me, that the whole future of the world depends on a social worker dying. What? I think this did a pretty accurate depiction of the beginnings of social work and all of its goods and all of its bads. I don't know. I feel like they're trying to say something with this episode, like that, you have to sort of like kill the idealism and pacifist in you in order to win out against Hitler or something. And like that's represented, like all the good stuff is represented by femininity, and you have to let masculinity take over or something, and like kill the lover in you or something. I don't know. I don't really know if I agree with that message 100%. I feel like I probably don't quite much at all. For a number of reasons. Yay for social workers being represented in sci-fi. That doesn't happen much. I don't know, it's been a while since I watched this. I remember there being a lot of things where I rolled my eyes and was like, oh god. Pretty much like anytime they try to like talk about humanity, or like, not humanity, but like human history, you see a lot of racism and sexism pop up and not critiqued at all. It's sometimes easier when it's in the future for some reason. But every time they travel to the past, you see worse things, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Lots of thoughts. We're running out of time. But what else you got?
So I was very impressed by this episode as a kid because it was, I think, the first episode of TV at all that I'd seen that had any sort of attempts at literariness. Just like there's foreshadowing, and then McCoy is shouting that they're assassins and murderers, and then they do end up murdering somebody. And there are bits that you don't really get the significance, but then you think about it and you get the significance. Like there's a character who just has a few lines, and then he finds he's a bum on the street who gets who's one of the people who goes to the soup kitchen, and then he finds the phaser that they've dropped, the laser beam, and accidentally turns it on and kills himself. And obviously this is something they can't undo, and they don't even notice that they've accidentally killed this other person, and then it's clear that this doesn't actually alter history. So it's kind of a statement that no, not everybody actually matters from a historical viewpoint. In the grand sweep of history, you can kill one of the people who goes to a soup kitchen and it will not affect the outcome, which is a very Harlan Ellison-y thing that you would not... and kind of brings out that whole red shirt stuff from Star Trek into more into focus. And I feel like this whole thing is a metaphor metaphor, or I felt at the time like the whole thing was a metaphor for how the problem with Star Trek, which is that it's depicting this utopian vision as if it's come out of whole cloth. Like, they always skip over the part where we actually create the utopia. Even the earliest prequel says, well, now that we've eradicated war, disease, and division, maybe we should start exploring the galaxy. That's where we start with Star Trek. And so he's pointing out that in order to do that, you kind of have to kill the part of us that wants to get from here to there. Like the knowledge that this is a dream. I don't know. I don't know if I like it so much as an adult that clearly like went through a lot of revisions and compromises and is not super Ellison-y by the end of it. It's cool. It's dark. It goes darker than Star Trek likes to go, and seems to be more aware of it than just Star Trek being like, oh yeah, and let's kill off the guy who's getting married, whatever. But we're out of time, so see you next week.
Bye.